one lesson that I would always tell people getting started is do not go for small properties because sure, the risk is lower because it's a lower number, but it's really the risk is actually higher because you don't have the cash flow to deal with problems as they arise. Go for bigger properties because they have more revenue coming in, which allows you to deal with issues as they arise. If you go for these smaller properties, one issue is going to completely wipe out all your profits, and that's going to give you a bad day. So,
hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Jack Bosch Show, where we talk about all things finance and real estate. Today is a real estate episode, and we're going to talk about mobile home parks and self-storage facilities, how to get them, how to find them, how to underwrite them, how to fund them, how to close them, how to operate them. And my guest is Gabriel Peterson. Gabriel runs a bunch of those. So Gabriel, how the heck are you doing today?
Jack, I am doing good. Yeah, thank you very much for hopping on or for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to talk about that. So first of all, you're located in the Seattle kind of industry location in the area, right?
Yeah, the beautifully sunny area of Seattle. I'm actually in Tacoma, Washington, which is just south of Seattle.
Okay. Yep.
You were mentioning you're from Germany, so it's about the same climate that we got going on up here.
Yeah, I'm sitting out here in beautiful Arizona. It is April, like when we're recording this, and it's already 91 degrees here, which is absolutely beautiful because no humidity. It feels like 78 anywhere else. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I love the sun. Let's put it that way. I couldn't live in there anymore. Anyway, but you're
right place.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. Anywhere anyone lives wherever they want to live, and so let's talk about it. You do mobile home parks and self storage. Do you do it only? Do you do it all over the country? Do you do it only regionally in the area you live in? Tell us about your business.
Yeah, so mobile home RV and self-storage is what we look to buy and put in the portfolio. We also do residential single family, but on the commercial side, it's mobile home RV self-storage. From location, we do own in Washington State. I haven't been able to find any really good deals in a while in Washington. Obviously, I still am looking here, still trying to dig under the rocks to find something good, but I haven't found anything recently. But we also look, all over the country. We have a bunch in Texas, Indiana. I've owned in Arkansas. So kind of the south of the U.S. I guess Indianapolis is mid United States, but I guess all over the country is where we own.
Okay. Great. So what attracted you to that asset class, and how did you get into that asset class in the first place?
Yeah. I guess I'll wind it back a little bit. I started in corporate after winding it back way back. After college, I started in corporate, and but I didn't really want to be, it didn't really fit me. I didn't really want to be working in corporate, and so I kept looking for ways to get out of it. Started a whole bunch of different side businesses like e-commerce stores, digital marketing, you name it. If there was a Facebook ad for it, I tried that business. And eventually I ended up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book kind of got me into real estate. People always recommend that on my podcast, that book. I always say it's a great book if you don't know anything about real estate, because it doesn't teach you how to do it. It just tells you why you should be doing it. That's kind of what it did for me. It kind of got me going, got me excited. And then in 2014, I bought my first single family flip. We made like 80 something thousand dollars on it, which is a ton of money. And I had never seen that much money in a single check. And so it kind of got me hooked. And then I just kept going down that path, doing wholesales, flips on the single family, small multifamily side until 2019, when I decided I wanted to go full time, leave corporate, and just focus 100% on real estate. But I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it. I didn't feel at the time that single family was scalable. I didn't feel like I could really reach my goals with single family. I now know that's not the case. You can definitely scale single family, but at the time I didn't feel like I could do that. And so I was looking at commercial. Multifamily was the thing that everybody was talking about, and so that's kind of the direction I was going. But I ended up meeting somebody who turned out to be my partner later on in a mobile home park. He had taken the course with what is his name? It's a big name. brain fart. I can't remember. He took a course in mobile home park
That's all
investing.
right. There's a
Yeah,
few people out there.
yeah, and he told me about it, got me excited, um, and so I just kind of turned my attention that direction. Looked at some parks. We ended up buying two of them. I after running, this is my first foray into commercial. After running those parks for a bit, I thought that I didn't really want to own something that somebody lived in. And so I decided to look at other assets. I looked at industrial, looked at retail, looked at self storage. Ended up deciding self storage was something that I wanted to try out. Gave it
So
a
wait a second, you
try.
said you didn't want to invest in something that where somebody was living in. Why is that?
I didn't. It really just came down to personal preference. I didn't want to deal with evictions. They're 100% necessary. It needs to happen, but
They're
I
not
guess I'm
enjoyable, for sure.
not enjoyable. Yeah. And I have no problem with evictions on the self storage side. It's stuff. And if you're not paying, then we're going to get rid of it. Like that's all there is to it. But when you're talking about moving somebody's life, yeah, it's not enjoyable. So I ended up, going self storage, bought I think five of them at this point. And, that's kind of wrapping a big story into one little ball, but that was kind of how it played out.
All right, so you basically started single family, did some fixes, then got exposed to mobile home parks, and from there, so like, yeah, this is cool, but I really want to deal with the stuff where nobody's living in, and then you did the natural progression. It's interesting. I'm always interested in how people end up where they end up with, because nobody wakes up one morning and says like, this is the asset class that I always envisioned to want to go to. You start in one, and then over time you weave your way into different ones based on what your positive or negative experiences are, and what I always like to say, like, what's the shit sandwich that comes in the middle of between you and the end result that you want to accomplish. And you chose that you want to minimize the human interaction in that shit sandwich. Is that about right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So no, that perfectly makes sense. I have a friend that owns like 17,000 self storage units, and that's one of the key pieces. Like, it's the eviction is fast because it's just put a lock on and get it up to the auction and have it sold, and you don't have to deal with people's livelihoods and all these kind of things. It's just stuff, as you said. So great. So now you want to do this, and now you want to buy those. And I know for myself, when we did when we added multifamily to land, it was a 100x jump in complexity from the point of view of handling a single deal. Obviously, with land, there's nothing to handle because it's just a piece of land that you put on a contract and you wholesale. But also from a point of view, just simply from acquisition, underwriting, all the different variables, all the different things that could go wrong, financing it, getting to a commercial lender, getting him qualified for financing, then raising money with investors, and so on and so forth. So how did that go? Did you have somebody guiding you that way, or did you just simply learn it piece by piece, or how did that work?
Um, yeah, you mentioned a lot of pieces of the transaction there. But pretty much all of it I learned either from the people that I was working with, from looking at things online, and then also just from doing it. Um, I think you mentioned financing, you mentioned raising capital. I think you might have mentioned finding the deal. Um, well, I guess we'll start at the beginning. The finding the deal piece. That one, how did I learn that? That one, I took a course in single family in wholesales a long time ago from Matt Tirialt, this guy in California.
I know, Matt. He's a
Um,
good friend of mine.
yeah, nice. Yeah, he's the first guy I learned from. I took his course. He doesn't know me, but he did have an impact on me. And in his course, he goes over all the different standard things that people teach in marketing, and I kind of just that's exactly what I did. I did letters, cold calling. Now we do, Facebook ads, Google ads. What am I missing out? Letters, cold calling. Oh, texting. So yeah, I mean, everything that everybody else does, we built systems around it and kind of made it into a business. And so we're pretty efficient with that. Our primary form of marketing to find new deals is through cold calling. We have a team of cold callers that call for us every day and bring us leads. We also, I really like texting, but it's getting harder and harder to do that with just the different compliance. We've jumped from platform to platform trying to find one that will work. And now I think we were using launch control, but they recently had issues with the TCPI stuff, and so now we're kind of not doing texting for a while.
Yeah,
So
texting
cold
is a
calling
tough
right
one. Yeah,
now.
texting is a tough
Yeah.
one. But yeah, go ahead, go ahead. So, so again, so going back into this, so you started with wholesaling, but then again, getting into the complexities of these deals. How did you did like when we started with multifamily? The way we did it is very simply we found ourselves somebody. Obviously, we're well established in the industry already, so we found somebody that has already been doing multifamily deals. We came in, we were helped raise a bunch of money. We came in as a co-general partner, right, as a junior general partner, and we basically shadowed him and learned how the underwriting works, learned how the financing works, learned how the management of it works, and then over time we then separated for various reasons, but separated and started doing our own deals. And at that point, we had been, because we were a junior partner in that first deal, which had a Freddie Mac loan, or Fannie Mae, I don't even remember. We were already qualified for Freddie Mac. So the next deal was we got a Fannie Mae loan. So we basically said, hey, we're not qualified with you yet, but we're qualified with Freddie. And they're like, oh, okay, then you're good, because both are government owned. So then we got to that process, and then over time we basically built our ability to now go to any bank and say like, yeah, we're multiple times Freddie and Fannie approved. You can get us a loan with that, and we can get to that process. Now we know if it's Freddie, it's these kind of documents. If it's Fannie, it's these kind of documents. We kind of know what to expect, and it's gotten so much simpler and faster to qualify for a loan. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we bought 91 units, and we were able to get to the full qualification and loan process in 38 days. That is like, it's like the fastest I've ever seen it go through. Usually it takes 60 to 75 days, but everyone was motivated, everyone was responsive, and we got through in 38 days, which was crazy. So how did you get to that point?
So I have been very lucky, and I've been able to negotiate seller financing for the vast majority of the deals that I bought.
Okay,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, and like the first mobile home park I bought, it was, or actually both the first two of both of them, we negotiated seller financing. Like the second one we got, I don't know how we got this set up, but it was like 2.99, right, 2.73% interest.
Oh wow.
Yeah, with an 11-year loan, fully amortized, and so and then 20%
Okay.
down is what we gave them. And I've been able to do that for most of the deals. I've been able to get seller financing, so we haven't had to go through that process. We've refinanced a lot of our properties with bank lending, but the purchase is done with seller financing. And then I think you mentioned raising capital. That one I've done. Started out doing it all with my own money. And then after that, I've just brought in one or two additional investors that I've met through my podcast or through other, ways of life, um, to come on and be a JV partner in the deal.
Very cool. I like that. Self-financing. So talk me through a self-financing conversation with that deal with a 2.73% interest. How much was the purchase price for that?
Yeah, so it was a 43 unit mobile home park. It was just trying to remember. I think it was 675,000, so it wasn't
Okay.
that much. But we got it for a steal.
Yeah.
Um,
Or is that including mobile homes, or it's just the land basically?
yeah, and it was mobile home RV, but they operated as a mobile home park because it was long term stay, and that was they were
But
all
did
tenant.
did it include the actual bill, the actual uh, mobile
Yeah,
homes?
homes. No, so that they were all tenant owned homes, and so there were no park owned
Okay.
homes in the park property.
By
It
the
did
way,
include.
do you prefer tenant-owned homes, or do you prefer owning them yourself and maintaining them?
Yeah, definitely 10 of them. I
Yeah.
don't want to own the house. In fact, the first park we bought, we it did come with park or with homes, but we sold it directly to the person who was living there for like $500 for virtually nothing. Because we don't want to own them. We don't want to have to deal with that. And the so that park out in it's in Moses Lake, Washington, and that one it used to be a KOA, and so it also came with a
What's a KOA?
Camp of America, like an RV RV
Okay.
park. Yeah, and people can generally you'll see when you see a KOA, you'll know what a KOA you'll know a KOA because they always have that like that front office thing, and so it had that there. But we've been turning that into a mini multifamily. We're turning into a fourplex or a fiveplex, I guess. Apartment on top, and then there's no use for the bottom because we're running it as a mobile home park, and so we're changing that into four additional units right
All
now.
right.
So yeah, it's turning out to be a good deal.
So let's go back to that deal. So it's 640, you said?
I
600,
think it was 670 something,
670.
675,
Okay,
something like
whatever
that.
it is. So
Yeah.
something around that, 675. And you put 20% down, which is in this case about $130,000 plus minus, and $133,000. And so that means you're financing with them about $640,000 plus minus, right? That's and it's about right.
Yeah, I
So.
think we financed about I can't remember. I think it was about like 525 is what we financed. Let's just
525.
use that
Okay, so
number.
perhaps
Yeah.
you got it for 600 and 525. Anyway,
Yeah.
so if you finance 525, okay, great, and you're paying that low interest rate. And so walk me through that conversation with the seller. Did you go straight up to the seller and say like, hey, listen, you want to sell this property? Yeah, okay. Do you offer seller financing, or how did that work?
Yeah. We
Or how does that typically work, even if it's not on this property? If today you go after seller financing, how do you go about that?
Well, a lot of times it really depends on what the seller wants. This particular seller, um, he wanted monthly income. He wanted something to live off of, and so we just mentioned like we could do seller financing, and you would be getting a monthly payment every month. And he specifically said that he wanted X amount, and we just calculated it based on that, and that's where we came up with the entire package. And so that's how it worked out with him. But generally, the conversation, a lot of the times, the properties that we look at that it works out, that seller financing does work out on, are properties that a bank are will have a difficult time lending with. So there, another example, I got seller financing on two self storage facilities in Dallas Fort Worth. This was a really old seller. He just completely hasn't been running these properties at all. He had this one assistant who was running them, but she wasn't answering the phone, and she was giving it to her. She was renting out all the units to her family for nothing, and blah 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 blah. Just really poor management. And so he didn't have any books. There was no P&L that he could show a bank. There was no just tax returns were nothing, and so he just had nothing that a bank could lend on. And I told him this. I said, listen, this is, I understand you want to sell. I understand you're tired of these facilities. In order to do that, I can't go to a bank and finance it because you don't have anything to prove the income. And really, there's not very much income anyways, because it was, the vacancy was pretty high because he hadn't been running it. And so I offered him seller financing. I told him how it would look. I think I gave him 25% down, 6% interest, 6% interest only, I think is what I offered, with a balloon in 5 years. And he understood it. He was like, yeah, that makes sense. And he accepted and got the deal done.
Very cool. And you find those deals, you said, currently mostly through cold calling. So you basically have a list of owners through probably what platform do you use to find, or where do you find these owners?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different platforms that we have used so to find the actual addresses of the park, the
Or where
parks
do you
in
even
in
find
the
the list
facilities.
of parks in the United States?
Yeah, there. So I started with just like a standard. You can go out there and just down Google like lists of self storage facilities in America. You can find those lists out there. There's a lot of them. And I just downloaded one of those. It came with like 55,000 facilities, and that was just kind of my starting template. And so used that template and I started skip tracing those numbers. And then I added onto it by hiring VAs to go into Google Maps, and they'd like look for properties, self storage facilities in metros that I wanted to buy, that didn't have like Google listings, because those are the good ones. And look, and I would look at other sources like Crexy. What was another one I used? I can't remember, but we'd skip trace them with things like batch skip tracing, kind skip tracing. There's a couple different skip tracing platforms that we've used, with different, varying levels of success. And once we get the skip trace done, then we just give them a call. A lot of them, it won't come back with the right number for the skip trace, so we have to go to the county records, find the LLC, skip trace that LLC. Usually it's owned by another LLC. You got to skip that next one, skip trace that next one. Yeah, you just keep digging until you find the right owner.
Right, and that's not what most people are doing. Most people are not willing to do that. Most people are just giving up on the first thing, or they're like, oh, I got to skip trace. So you're willing to do what other people are not willing to do in order to get the gems that other people want but don't know how to get.
Yeah, there you go. And it's not, I mean, I don't personally do this, and I hire VAs to do this, and anybody can do this. And if you just got to teach your VAs how to do it, and you can find good ones.
That's right. You don't do it, but neither does the CEO of Apple does really a whole lot. But it's what you mean. What I mean is like you still give the guidance that this is what needs to be done, and you train your team members, and you know what needs to be done. And you had the idea of going level after level to level, and have the different resources and find it. So the credit still goes to you for actually having and driving that through your team and making sure it actually happens.
Yep, I'll take it.
There we go. Good. Now, so now let's talk about operating. So you have those in different markets. How do you operate? Let's go into first mobile home parks and then self-storage facilities. How do you operate as a mobile home park more than driving distance away?
Yeah. So that was a really tough journey for us. When we bought it, we hired a property manager who was not good, and that was really difficult. We almost sold it. We were like seconds from selling it, for a really good price. Actually, this was when interest rates were pretty low, and so people were willing to pay triple what we bought it for. And so we were about ready to just pull the plug and say we're done, because we had really poor management. But once we got rid of that manager, we found just a rock star, a kick-ass property manager. She lives in the area. She's able to manage both of the properties because they're pretty close to each other. And so once we got her in place, it completely changed everything. She addresses problems before we even know a problem exists. She's very organized. She interacts well with the tenants. She changed it for us and made it a lot easier to manage. So you got to get a good property manager. If you don't have a good property manager or third-party property manager to work with who you can trust to do the right thing, make the right decisions, and bring you in only when you're absolutely needed to make a crucial decision, that's key. You just got to get that team member in place as quickly as you can, or else you're going to be pulling your hair out.
Okay, so basically what I hear you say is that you self-manage with the help of a hired employee that is local and that manages the property.
Yes.
Okay, good. Because again, that's quite different from multifamily, where you typically, until you reach a certain size, you third-party manage. Are there even third-party managers for mobile home parks out there?
We looked, and there's nobody that exclusively does. Well, there are a few that exclusively do mobile home parks, but they'll only take very large mobile home parks.
Yeah, I would think
so. So we reached out to a couple multifamily property managers, third-party property managers. We really couldn't find somebody that we felt could do a good job. And so we ended up just doing it in-house. We're glad we did, because she works out really well. And
again, since this is all fits together, because since you're doing self-financing on these deals, or at least initially, and then you're going to bank financing, what I assume is local bank financing, not like institutional money. So then you actually have much less pressures to use third-party management. So if again in the multifamily space, the moment you go with a Fannie or Freddie loan, they typically want you to they actually need to approve the property management company. They're literally, yeah. You submit it, and then if they're well known, there's a few companies that are like almost nationwide, and they're on their list of approved property management companies, and they approve it like that. If they're not, they need to go through a vetting process with them and so on before they even approve them. So it's not always the easiest thing to do. And even when you want to replace them, because if you're unhappy with them, and we have had to fire a couple of property management companies in the past, you got to get the new one approved by the lender again. You don't have to jump through that. So you basically, particularly with seller financing, you have no restrictions. You can just hire who you want, and as long as they do a good job, you do it. And then once you have that track record, you can go to a lender and say, like, here's our track record, and it's all good. It makes life much, much easier. Like that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I did not know that was the case in multifamily.
Yeah. In a larger multifamily, I mean, at the moment you go to a local bank again for financing, the rules are different. And I'm talking about the Fannie, Freddie, Fannie Mac, Freddie Mac, small or mid cap loans that are government backed and so on. They're very restrictive with everything. But therefore, you get some of the best rates, and it's non-recourse loans. So if the world would come to an end, you're not tied to that asset, or your personal credit doesn't go down if really something catastrophic would happen. With that said, of course, we always have insurance and everything, right? So okay, so now good, that makes sense. So you have that person. How does that person get paid and incentivized? Do you pay them like per lease? You pay them a base salary? You're just paying a flat fee? How do you keep that person being excited about continue to make this a great property?
She gets a base pay, and then we give her bonuses at the end of the year. We're lucky; she really enjoys the job. She likes going out there. And again, we just got really lucky with her. It was not going this way before we found her, and as I mentioned, we were ready to sell, but we found this good property manager. She fits really well into the team. But yeah, we give her a base pay is how she's compensated.
Okay, very cool. Now let's move over to the self-storage side of things. How do you manage those?
Those I use third party. So we use third party property management. Um, both.
How big are your typical self-storage facilities that you have?
Like 100, 120. They're not huge. Yeah.
So is that big enough to have a self third party? How does third party even manage? Is there somebody in the office? Is there somebody, or is it on demand? Or just tell me about it. I know nothing about self storage. That's still one of the things I do want to learn about. And again, a good friend of mine owns 17,000 units and is willing to teach me, but I haven't taken the time to really learn it. But that's definitely an asset class I eventually want to get into. So I'm excited to have you here to tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, self storage is cool because it is highly, you can automate it pretty well, and you don't necessarily need to have somebody on site. It can be hands free, and that is what we've done. We do have an office.
Are you using those kiosks?
Say that again.
You're using those kiosks?
No, I looked into the kiosks, and I heard a lot of negative feedback about them. Mostly that the maintenance is difficult. People will break them. It's just more of a headache than it's
okay.
worth. I will say one thing that is missing from the self storage industry. I'll get into that in a second, but so everything is from the customer's perspective. Like they find it online, they rent online, they sign online. They get their access key code online, so everything, they don't even have to interact with any of our staff. Usually they do when they'll call us and we'll answer their questions and that kind of stuff, but it's mostly hands off. The thing that is missing, and so in self storage, is a way to accept cash that doesn't require somebody to be on site, like an office manager to be there to receive the cash. So with mobile home parks, we use Pay Near Me, which is this platform that allows our tenants to take a slip, like a little printout slip from Appfolio, which is the CRM that we use, and they can take it to like 7-Eleven, they can take it to Walmart or whatever, and they can pay with cash. And they just scan that code at 7-Eleven, pay with cash, and that'll pay their rent. So that means that our property manager doesn't have to handle the cash, but our tenants can still pay with cash at one of these institutions. In self storage, there is no way to do that, but people love paying in cash. And so right now, all of our facilities are 100% credit card only. We only accept credit card or ACH payments. We have lost a lot of opportunity to accept cash payments because a lot of people want to pay in cash. And so if anybody out there in self storage is listening, this is a business that needs to be made, something that allows customers to pay with cash at a local business, 7-Eleven, Walmart, whatever, that connects to your CRM system, and and goes against their ledger to show that they paid.
Hmm. Wouldn't something work? I mean, I know they carry cash, but they also carry a phone. Wouldn't it be possible? Well, no, that's I'm thinking that's definitely sounds like something that has application for a lot of different things. But because even like in the Class C office, not office, but multifamily space, there is tenants that want to pay cash. So we have also a set of rental houses that back 15 years ago we would go drive by every once a month and pick up their rent, and most would pay us in cash. Then we stopped accepting cash, but now what they do is they go to the local 7-Eleven and get a cashier's check, or not a cashier's check, but a money order, and then they bring in the money order. There's got to be a different way that they could, with some QR code or something.
Well, there is. I mean, it's with Pay Near Me is the platform. It's a company out there, and I've emailed them. I'm like, you guys got to get on with the self storage platforms, because we use them with mobile home parks. It's called Appfolio is the property management platform that we use, and it connects to Pay Near Me. But the Pay Near Me does not connect to Easy Storage Solutions, which is the platform we use to manage self storage, and that is just driving me crazy. I need them to be able to. I need to be able to accept cash from our customers with self storage. It's just, if anybody has a solution out there, you need to email me, because I want to know.
All right, there we go, guys. If you have a solution for that, email Emily. What's your email address?
Gabe at therealestateInvestingClub.com.
Okay, Gabe at therealestateInvestingClub.com. Well, as a matter of fact, with that said, like you obviously now, as you're expanding, you're probably raising money for these deals. You probably have investors with you and so on. And is that correct?
Yeah. So we've done a couple deals with raising money at this point. And that's where, I want to get bigger deals. That's one thing, I've been invited on other podcasts, and people always say, like, what's a lesson that you learned? One lesson that I would always tell people getting started is, do not go for small properties, because sure, the risk is lower because it's a lower number, but it's really, the risk is actually higher because you don't have the cash flow to deal with problems as they arise.
Yeah.
An ancillary lesson is always be capitalized well. Go into a deal with more money than you need. But on the side of that, make sure go for bigger properties, because they have more revenue coming in, which allows you to deal with issues as they arise. If you go for these smaller properties, one issue is going to completely wipe out all your profits, and that's going to give you a bad day. So,
and the second issue is going to wipe out your savings. Right, so wiser words have not been spoken. I would absolutely agree. We did the same thing. We started with buying single families, and just from a management point of view, we were like, that's a nightmare. You got 40 single families, and that's 40 headaches, 40 roofs, 40 driveways, 40 gardens, 40 backyards, 40 different kind of issues, and don't want to deal with that. Instead, the next deal we did after that was buy a 90-unit apartment complex. We're like,
you went big quick.
Now we have enough revenue to have a full-time leasing agent, and that is supervised by a regional manager. We have a full-time maintenance guy that is supervised by the regional manager of a third-party company that charges a percentage, and yes, we pay for the salaries. But if this property throws off $1 million a year in rental revenue, then you can afford two $50,000 salaries plus a little bit additional kind of HR thing, and you can afford, because they also save you money. Because the way they save you money is that our maintenance guys are, for example, always HVAC certified. So basically what that means, and that's not an issue in storage and also not in mobile homes, but on multifamily, you have 90 units, you have 90 air conditions. So what happens if you have 40 houses, you have 40 air conditions. One air condition goes down, guess what happens? You call the local air condition company. They know you don't know anything about air conditions. So they go check it out and they're like, oh, this is an old air condition. It's replacement, $6,000. Boom. Right? You do that on every one of these properties. I mean, if they're brand new, they can't get away with that, and they obviously have warranties and stuff. But over the years, you're going to replace 40 air conditions, because every time one of these breaks, it's like, oh, it's an old air condition, until they're all replaced. While on a 90-unit apartment complex, your maintenance guy is air conditioned, heating and air conditioned certified. He's as good as the air conditioned guy that comes to your house. He's going to look at the place, oh, the condenser's bad. So he goes to the store, buys a new condenser for $500, puts a new condenser in, and essentially you have a brand new air conditioned unit for $500 plus his salary. But his salary, you're going to spend that 3 times more on all these outside services that are going to nickel and dime you for everything. So what we found is actually cheaper, less hassle, less headaches to have your full-time maintenance guy there, because they spend all day long fixing stuff. Stuff gets fixed faster, stuff gets fixed better, stuff costs a fraction to fix it, and overall it's actually, including this guy's salary, is that you pay actually less than if you have it the other way around. So I agree with you. You have more revenue, you have actually lower expenses, and you make way more money on these kind of deals.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. And again, if it's like, well, Jack or Gabriel, what if I start with a 10 unit? Well, again, 10 units is not enough to have a full-time person. 20 units is not enough. Heck, I got a property that says 45 units. It's still not enough. And that's the biggest struggle there. With 45 units, what do? Find a person part-time? People don't want to work part-time in maintenance. They want to have a full-time job. Right? So that has become the biggest challenge in some of these mid-sized units. So that's why we're like, no, everything usually about 75 units, or ideally in line like 90 units, depending on rental rates, is big enough to actually carry a full-time team. And now you're actually triple removed from the issue. Something breaks, it gets reported to the system and to the leasing agent. The leasing agent goes, or the property manager, basically it's the leasing agent, reports it to the maintenance guy, and so either one of those hear it. So something breaks, the leasing agent, the maintenance guy, the regional, and afterwards it comes to you.
Yeah. And you're not going to be hearing about a broken toilet. It's not going to get that far up.
Not about, and there's a limit. If it's less than $1,000, they just go fix it. If it's over $1,000, now you get it like, hey, what do we do about this? Do we have permission? And that's the kind of stuff you do want to hear about anyway.
Yep.
And by now we have an asset manager. So now I'm 4 levels removed, because now the asset manager has decision power up to a certain dollar amount, and I don't any hear about that either. So now we have units all over the country that I'm not personally involved in, beyond a once a week call where we look through all of these things. We make a list of it. So I do hear about it, but I hear about it at 11:30 on Friday.
There you go.
In a scheduled way. Yeah. In a scheduled way, it's a standing appointment that we have every single week. Well, looks like you have built something really cool there. So how can somebody find out more about what you do? How can somebody get in contact with you if they want to get into that space, if they want to basically perhaps invest with you? And I know you have a podcast too. How do people hear about you and learn more about you? You gave your email address already, but what else do you got?
Yeah. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about us, the podcast is therealestateinvestingclub.com. Just go to that website, therealestateinvestingclub.com. You can search us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. We're out there everywhere. And then the realestateInvestingClub.com links to our investment company, Kaizen Properties. KaizenPropertiesUSA.com is that URL. But really just check out the podcast. We have people there from all walks of life, all asset classes. We dive into, industrial, self-storage, land. We've had guys that flip farms, you name it. If it's real estate, we talk about it. And that's what we do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So guys, go check it out. We'll put it all into the show notes too. And with that said, thank you very much, Gabriel, for being here with us today.
Awesome, Jack. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. And with that said, that's a wrap. Make sure you give us that 5-star review. Make sure you share that. Make sure you subscribe. We realize that most people that will listen to this are not yet subscribed. So if you hear this, if you enjoyed that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification button if you watch it on YouTube, and make sure you share it with your friends, because the Jack Bosch Show is all things about finance, real estate, and entrepreneurship. With that said, thank you very much. Bye-bye.